So a lot of people get to midlife and they realize they're losing their fitness and they start to do more running, more walking, or maybe HIIT classes, but they forget about flexibility. They forget about moving the muscles and stretching the muscles out, which is where yoga is just so incredibly fantastic on many, many levels for midlife women in particular, and men of course. One thing that we forget is that when we are just strengthening and we're not opening up and releasing muscles, we create tension, which creates pain. And once we're in pain, we're less likely to move. So I'm just going to show you a little release sequence for the pelvic area. One thing to note, ladies, is that often lower back pain comes from pelvic tension. Pelvic tension is very much associated with breathing patterns and posture and anxiety levels. So don't forget that when you're wondering why you've got lower back pain or pain, discomfort in any part of the pelvic area, it's likely that there are tension patterns there. So just coming onto your back, take one knee up into your chest like so, and lengthen the other leg, sorry you can't see me, lengthen the other leg so we open up into these hip flexors. And take the arm above your head and take some big breaths, and you're trying to create breath going into the side of your lungs in these ribs, into the intercostal muscles and into the back of your lungs where we have most of our lung capacity. So long smooth breaths, wriggle your jaw, do some yawns, and as you exhale, try and make that exhalation really nice and long. Get all of the breath out of you, out of those lungs. So you can take another full deep breath in from the bottom of the lungs, scraping up right underneath the armpit into the back of the lungs. So pulling fingertips and toes apart, stretching the whole side of your body, taking some long, smooth, deep breaths. As you exhale, release your lower jaw. So the jaw and the pelvic floor are deeply fascially connected, and we want to make sure that we release consciously tension that we're holding around the jaw. And then do that on the other side. Full breath, stretching from the fingers to the toes, lengthening the body. Start to drop your shoulders away from your ears. Take some deep breaths so that you are opening up the back of that right lung and almost scraping, I like to say scraping the breath right from the bottom of your rib cage, right up underneath your armpits on the side. So this encourages diaphragmatic breathing as opposed to just chest breathing or belly breathing. And then taking hands on top of knees, split the knees apart and do some big circles. So you're just wanting to mobilize the hip joints and get a bit of warmth, get a bit of vascular flow through the big rotator muscles around those hip joints. So one direction and then the other. And just notice where you are holding tension patterns, where it feels stiff and sticky. Good, and then you might take both knees together and just massage around the sacrum, so the back of your pelvis, one direction, and then the other. And then coming into frog pose, so toes together, knees apart, grabbing hold of your calves or down by your ankles and pressing the forearms outwards. Now make sure the shoulders don't start going up towards the ears. Draw them down and just gentle pressure to open up into these inner thighs, these adductor muscles. They run right into the pelvic floor. So often we have tight adductors, and that often means we've got tight pelvic floor muscles that directly affects back pain. So I like to massage my ankles here as well. So nice big circles with the ankles, shoulders are dropping, breathing slowly, full breaths. If you know the Ujjayi breath in yoga, that is particularly helpful because it just starts to enhance that vagus nerve stimulation and enhance the parasympathetic nervous system. So we get into the rest and digest state more quickly, and of course as we are in that calming state, we get better oxygenization of our muscle fibers. The whole system just calms down. So gently pressing out with the forearms, stretching those inner thigh muscles. Let your belly be soft at this point. Really let the lower belly area be nice and relaxed. And then stick your feet up towards the ceiling. This is baby pose. So we either grab hold of ankles, shoulders down, try to get the whole of your back onto the ground so you're not sort of squished up like so. You can always lay the pillow underneath your head. If you can reach your fingertips to the inside of your feet, That's great. You might even need a strap to put over your feet and hold on to the edges of the strap. So here's baby pose. This is a very open pose through the groin, and just rock from side to side. So you massage over your spine. It's a little bit of a reset for the central nervous system when we do this. So again, we're focusing on long exhalations, full breathing. Imagine that you have a vase and you're pouring water into the vase, and the breath is similar. So we're going from the bottom of the lungs out to the sides as we fill those lungs up with the breath, and then up to the top towards the clavicles. And then as you exhale, it's like you're pouring water out of that vase. So it's a gentle, smooth, complete exhalation, pouring the breath out of the lungs. Good, and then just dropping those feet down to the ground, nice and wide with your feet, so wider than hip width apart. And drop the knees first to one side, a little bit of extra pressure through the top knee down towards the ground, and then over to the other side. So you're window wiping your knees from one side to the other. We're getting into the sartorius muscle, this big long muscle that goes from the inside of the knee, up into the hip, up and over. That's it. Exhaling as you gently press the knee down. And then we're going to come right over onto hands and knees. I always do a little stretch through the wrists, coming onto hands and knees, just to release any tension in the wrists. And then circling, so whether you're standing or on all fours, just circling the pelvis like so is a wonderful way to release tension in the lower back and in the pelvic area. So imagine you have a tail and you're swirling your tail behind you. You are kind of showing off your tail, one direction and then the other, swirling the hips around. So just like if you were hula hooping when you're standing up. And then take your hands out in front of you. Knees can be relatively wide still. Drop your bottom back towards your heels, and then take your pelvis right around in circles. So I like to imagine it's a pebble that has dropped into a still lake, and you are circling. So I'm just going to do it in different directions so you can see pelvis circling around, making bigger and bigger circles. And then if you find a point which is really stiff in the hips, especially in this ITB band, this band down the side here, just kind of massage into it. And then back, and then over to the other side, finding any sticky points and spending a little bit more time there, just releasing. So circling in one direction and then the other. I find this nice massaging circling is something that really helps keep that stiffness in the hips at bay, and then knees together and just dropping the hips from side to side like so. Releasing the hips from side to side. Beautiful. And then knees apart. Slide your bottom back towards your heels with knees apart, and then just coming onto forearms. If you've got a bolster, you can drape yourself over the bolster. This releases into the pelvic floor area, releases those inner thighs, and can just help you breathe as well, focusing on the back of your lungs. As you breathe and relax, jaw relaxed, shoulders are relaxed. Beautiful. If this is a little bit too much pressure on the pelvic floor, just keep your bottom lifted slightly more, like so, and drop the chest a little bit more down. This actually gives you a nice squeezy stretch through the mid back, that thoracic spine area. Beautiful. And then just a final lateral stretch. So drop your hips over to one side. You can always put a bolster or a brick underneath your hips. Up and over, releasing the whole side of your body, and then up and over to the other side. Good. So don't forget your pelvis. Don't forget your hips. It's such an important part of our overall well-being, and we know that to have true fitness and health, we need flexibility as well as strength.